everyone, welcome back to another Exo Heroes video. Today we're going to be taking a look at the upcoming Synergy Fatecore, Monica. The notes for her changes were released earlier this morning, and we're going to get right into it to give you guys an idea of what those changes are, what they mean, and ultimately whether or not she's worth pulling for. If you guys enjoyed this video, don't forget to leave a like at the end, and if you want to see similar content, we have tons of Exo Heroes and Genshin on the way, so subscribe to stay tuned. Alright, so right off the bat, her design is our second favorite from the Synergy Fatecore line. FC Wilkes still lives on in our hearts as the #1 K-pop visual. Monica looks good, but as some others have pointed out, the pose in-game is a little aggressive for an idol, as we can see in the current Synergy core raid. She's kind of hunched over in her default stance, and it's just not the same as Wilkes or Jinai, who have poses that are more K-poppy, they stand up straight, they have these cooler, more elegant poses. That having been said, we're definitely getting more K-pop vibes from Monica and Wilkes compared to Jinai, who looks honestly more like a burlesque dancer. As always, Exo Heroes continues to impress with their art and visuals, but let's get into the real discussion. As you can see here, she gets a nice boost to her main stats, as Fatecores typically do. This is just the standard procedure, so we can move on to the hopefully more interesting part of her kit, the skills. So right off the bat, Monica keeps her base Focus Fire 2 passive, and she gains the two new Synergy line passives, Superstar and Fan Meeting. Superstar afflicts the attention mark for 7 turns to the target when her skill hits, and increases all dot damage on the target marked with attention by 100%. Okay, so this is basically saying when Monica hits an enemy with her abilities, they'll take double dot damage for the next 7 turns. Pretty straightforward. Fan Meeting is a little more complicated, and afflicts the anti-fan mark to the target when Monica is attacked. This triggers double team on all living allies if the health of the enemy with anti-fan is at 30% or lower once every 7 turns. So in case that's a little confusing, what this means is enemies that attack Monica become anti-fans, and if an anti-fan has 30% HP or less, your allies will all double team them when the anti-fan is attacked. Every 7 turns is roughly every round, so it's probably a bit easier to think of it like that. Moving on to her actives, her A1 on the stage now gets some nice damage buffs to the initial hit, up from 150 to 187, and the dot goes up from 65 to 82%. So total, assuming all dot ticks proc, this is a roughly 25% damage increase. Actually, wait, no. Because of Superstar and the double dot damage, this would actually come out to be roughly a 100% damage increase. Really, it's 97% rounded, but the takeaway is that this skill is actually much stronger now due to the direct numbers buffs and the indirect buff with her Synergy passive. Her A2, Crowd Surfing, also gets a damage buff up from 420 to 525%. This is actually a 25% damage increase just by looking at the scaling. It could potentially be more efficient when used against high defense targets because it's piercing, but we don't have the math for that. If we keep going down the notes here, we can see her rates, as is the case with all Black Frame Fatecores. She has a 19 pull pity and a rate up pull percentage of 0.7%. So now let's take a look at how these changes affect her. We know that she has an overall 25% damage increase to her actives, which is always nice, but what about those passives? That's what really makes a Fatecore special. In Monica's case, they're just okay. Superstar is nice to have, but definitely isn't going to be a game changer with how Monica works. She's always been this solid hero that could flex roles as a Guardian Stonebreaker with her A1 or as a Tank Buster with her A2. This versatility is going to be her downfall here, as the Superstar passive is just purely for dot-focused heroes. So heroes like Jinai, Baelish, maybe even Valentina. But since Monica only has 1 dot and is not even a super strong dot, Superstar doesn't really do much for her. As we mentioned in our previous Synergy Fatecore reviews, we just don't see a dot heavy meta coming in, even with Superstar, so the passive doesn't really do anything. In this case, Superstar ends up being more of an afterthought like, oh hey, nice, I have double dot damage, rather than a passive that you would actually build a team around or treat as a necessity, like Dragon's Blood or Wet Fog. Fan Meeting is just as lackluster, and it's even more situational. It's another example of a passive that looks thematically fun and interesting, but in practice it's just so hard to use deliberately since it has so many requirements that you can't control. And we've had a lot of time to play around with FC Jinai, so speaking from experience, Fan Meeting has almost never been a factor in clearing PvE content or winning in PvP. This is because PvE bosses have so much health that getting off those extra hits is barely noticeable, and PvP has the opposite problem of too much damage, so enemies never hover at 30% or below long enough for the extra hits to matter. Now that we've taken the time to just trash on her passives, here are some bright points with FC Monica that we would like to talk about, namely her speed and damage. With base 110 speed, Monica's already one of the faster heroes, and we all know by now how important speed is in PvP or even PvE. Being a Chaos hero, she has decent attack as well. Although base Monica's attack ranking among legendary heroes shows as roughly 20th, she's actually around 5th because of the way attack tiers are split with multiple heroes having very similar attack stats. For example, Zeradin at 1644 versus Scarlet at 1643. When we take the Fatecore stat boost into account, Monica sits solidly in the 4th attack tier at around 1460. With that in mind, let's not sleep on FC Monica being a damage threat because she certainly has the potential. Our final verdict? Probably skip. If you're the type of person that wants to get the most value out of their Zest, then we don't think this is the banner for you. For players that are early on in their Exos journey, a pull or two wouldn't hurt just to see what you get, and FC Monica can definitely be a solid early mid-game carry. Her scaling with North Von Frosty's signature force is good as well, especially the 4 mana A2, but if you're at the point in the game where you have signature force, you probably also have better options to invest in. To us, Monica's a big step up from FC Wilkes, but not enough to justify pulling for her. If you're in it for the waifu, then definitely Monica should be on your radar, otherwise, we recommend saving up that Zest for Halloween Shell or Gold FC Sabrina. That does it for this video. If you enjoyed or found it informative, hopefully both, please drop a like and subscribe. More Exo Heroes content and Genshin content on the way. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you guys next time. Peace.